As I say, we're just about a minute to go before we make a start. I do see that there are a number of others joining us this afternoon. I will, for those of you that obviously are on the call already, and I will, repeat this again in a minute or so. There are a few, guidelines on the screen at the moment. So these sessions will be recorded, and obviously, turn off your microphone if you're not speaking, etc. More than happy for you to keep your cameras on if you wish. If not, then feel free to switch them off. And yeah, I'm sure that you can obviously read all of the bullet points that are there. So what we'll do is just gone 4:45 at the moment, and I know that we were instructed to try and start very, very promptly, but I appreciate, people might be joining us. So we'll just give it another 30 or so seconds just for some people to join us, and then we'll make a start. So this is, 30-second countdown. We'll see if anybody else will join us before we kick off. And I suppose the marvels of modern technology, I know that, that all of these will be recorded, and it may be that a lot of people will obviously go and, look at these at a kind of time and place that more suits rather than at the end of a busy day. So good. I see, I think we had one more person join there, so I'm quite happy to kick off, Brendan. And then subsequently the person's just left. So yeah, if we'll just make a start there, Brendan. I think that we've turned to 46 there. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being able to take the time to join us this afternoon. My name's Tom Harley, and I'm one of the education managers with Skills Development Scotland. I'm joined by Brendan Toll, who's one of the principal teachers of DYW, or is the principal teacher of DYW at St Luke's. Just a reminder, there are a number of protocols on the screen at the moment. If you've been in any of the sessions already, you'll obviously have seen these protocols. But just a reminder, just make sure your microphones are off. More than happy if you want to ask any questions to put these in the chat. But there is also an opportunity at the end, to ask any questions. We've built in a bit of a question and answer session. So without further ado, we'd obviously welcome you to the session looking at can young people in your school identify, develop and articulate their meta skills. Throughout the session, we will be using Mentimeter to try and get a little bit of a feedback from the audience. For those of you that have used Mentimeter before, it will require you to open up a kind of separate browser or use a mobile device. If you were to obviously go to that mobile device and type in menti.com and then the code 88992920, which I've just put in the chat alongside a link, that will get you to the presentation. So we are streaming the presentation live through MS Teams, but equally as much you'll be able to view it through Mentimeter, so it'll be duplicated in the two locations. Just to ensure that everybody has been able to get into Mentimeter, an opportunity for us to capture a little bit of a picture across Scotland. I know that we were hearing there from Jess that's in Aberdeenshire, and I appreciate there'll be many other practitioners that have joined the call from all over Scotland. Our first Mentimeter question is related to how your schools are already taking forward the skills agenda. So from your observations, how does progress in your school or across schools in your area, because I appreciate that I maybe have people on the call that maybe have that wider remit, compared to these statements. So within your establishment or across your schools in your area, are there regular opportunities for young people to talk about their skills? Is that at the early stages, or is that well established? Are you using a common framework? Now, I know that this afternoon we're here to talk about the meta skills and the skills 4.0, but it may be that you have another skills framework that you use. And is that embedded? Is that used across your setting? And equally as much, how are you using profiling? I know that Education Scotland are actually just about to kick off a piece of work around about profiling nationally. So, it'll be interesting to see what the picture is with profiling of the kind of delegates that we've got in this session this afternoon. So, just going to give you another 20 or so seconds. I appreciate that some people will have just been joining us. If you are joining us, I've just seen a few people just joining there now. So if you are just joining us, welcome to this afternoon's session, looking at how young people in your establishment might articulate and develop their meta skills. And we're just doing a very, very quick Mentimeter survey to see how schools are taking the skills agenda forward. So the whole presentation will be through menti.com, and the code that you can access Menti is on the screen, but equally as much within the chat function, there is a link to the Mentimeter. So, thank you very much for sharing these thoughts. Really interesting to see that there is a wide variety of how, certainly those people that are on the call and your schools are taking it forward. Profiling does seem to be on the lower end, and I think that was, again, from our intelligence, we have seen that profiling is something that is on a lot of schools' radars, but is at that early stages, and I know certainly Brendan will talk about that later in his school. The first messaging that we're going to hear is from the head teacher at St Luke's. We've got a small video here from the head teacher, really setting out what her objectives were and why she wanted to take this agenda forward. Just a very concise video that's around about 7 minutes. Please let me know if there are any sound issues, but I'm just going to play this video and hopefully afterwards hand over to Brendan to take you through the rest of the workshop.
In 2017, we began the process of creating our new shared cluster vision, values and aims. The process was people-led and involved all stakeholders connected to our community. In addition to our ongoing use of data, this process further deepened and enhanced our understanding of our local context and the aspirations of our young people and their families. As a result, our renewed vision, values and aims shone a lens on curriculum and pedagogy, forcing us to consider how we could achieve our ambitions for our young people and wider community in a planned and strategic way. Our renewed vision is for young people to flourish in a climate of high expectations, creativity and innovation, supported by our values of love, faith and understanding. Our collective aim is to inspire the moral purpose of learning and teaching, to unleash potential, raise attainment, promote equity, and transform the life chances of each and every learner, especially those most in need of support. Therefore, it was clear to me, given our national understanding of curriculum as a totality of the learner experience, that we would need to embark on a sustained programme of improvement with regards to the consistency and quality of learning and teaching, and investment in professional learning as a starting block on which to build the foundations of future curriculum redesign. I wanted practitioners to be supported through highly effective CLPL in pedagogy and in curriculum design. We were determined that our new vision, values and aims would not just be visible in words and posters, but in the daily lived experience in every classroom and the wider life of the school. Our 2018 to 2021 three-year strategic plan was subsequently launched with a strong focus on learning and teaching, underpinned by a commitment to professional learning. For me, it was essential that building a strong foundation of pedagogical expertise and a shared understanding of what good learning and teaching looks like was needed before we began to reimagine and redesign our curriculum. Ultimately, I wasn't looking for quick fixes or small tweaks to our curriculum. Rather, I was looking for informed, deliberate practice across the four contexts, which would enable us to be creative and innovative in providing highest quality learning experiences to enable our young people to develop the skills they would require to thrive in an ever-changing world. I established a curriculum design team in 2018 with a view to investing in a group of volunteer practitioners over the 3 years of the strategic direction cycle in readiness for curriculum redesign being at the centre of our next strategic direction from 2021 to 2024. Over a third of our staff volunteered and every department was represented on the group. This ensured a broad set of professional expertise and disciplinary knowledge within the team, which proved to be essential in our thinking and discussions about curriculum and skills development. During the first year, the main focus of the curriculum design team was to read widely and develop a common understanding of what we meant by the terms curriculum and curriculum making in our context. We reached out to Professor Mark Priestley, who worked with our team, To help us develop this shared clarity, and we engaged with the work done by SDS on Skills 4.0 and in particular meta skills. In the second year, the curriculum design team led our St Luke's Big Curriculum Debate, where we involved all stakeholders in discussing our aspirations and ambitions for our curriculum. This provided us with the rich contextual knowledge we needed to work together as a school community to develop, promote and sustain an aspirational vision for our curriculum, shaped by the shared values of the school and its community. Our findings clearly highlighted some of the worries and concerns our parents and young people had about the sustainability of future careers in such a changing world. The importance of skills such as creativity, critical thinking, adaptability and integrity was a prominent thread running through our findings. Given our focus on creativity and innovation and our research into problem-based learning, which coincided with the publication of the Education Scotland and NOTOSH papers on IDL, around 3/4 of our staff volunteered their time to attend 2 twilight sessions at the Nouveau School of Innovation at Kelvinside Academy to learn about their creative and future-oriented approaches to interdisciplinary learning and teaching. This experience was pivotal in helping us to think about the skills young people need for the workplace in an interdisciplinary way, rather than just focusing on subject-specific skills and literacy, numeracy and health and well-being as a responsibility of all. In the third year, our main focus was to pull together all of our professional learning and contextual information with regards to curriculum, align it with our enhanced pedagogical expertise, and begin to build the capacity of all staff with regards to curriculum and curriculum making. In August 2021, we launched our 3-year strategic direction for 2021 to 24, with curriculum redesign at the forefront of our plans. As we embarked on this work, the publication of the OECD report further reinforced our decision-making as we fully recognised that we needed to increase our focus on the development of skills, capacities and attributes across the curriculum alongside our redesign of disciplinary curricular experiences. And so, we have begun the process of reimagining our curriculum and have begun to declutter the BGE to make room not only to redesign the disciplinary content of our curriculum with innovative and creative learning experiences, but to embed the meta skills that will enable our young people to make connections across their learning and better prepare them for life post-school. Approaching the adoption of meta skills in this way, we've ensured that they're integral to our day in, day out learning and teaching approaches. Indeed, meta skills are becoming embedded in our pedagogical approaches and curriculum redesign work. Whilst we're still at the early stages of this curriculum redesign, practitioners are engaging in this work with confidence, creativity and ambition. We're taking time to avoid quick fixes and build a curriculum which is genuinely reflective of the needs and ambitions of our context within the local and national policy context. We're preparing our young people for the future and all of its uncertainties, challenges and opportunities with confidence and trust in our professional knowledge and expertise with regards to pedagogy and our in-depth understanding of what we need our curriculum to deliver for our young people if we're to enable them to thrive in a climate of high aspirations, creativity and innovation.
I think you'll all agree that that was a really, really powerful video and lots of really key messages within there. You know, I'd now like to hand over to Brendan, who will actually tell you more about the journey that the school went through. And hopefully, you know, we'll have a space for questions at the end and a little bit more interactiveness. So, Brendan, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Tom. That video really captured the journey we've been on as a school since 2017. And I feel like the conditions were right for this initiative to be a success in its early stages. There was absolute full support of the skills agenda from the head teacher and working with like-minded colleagues. There's a distributive leadership model within the school, so teachers within our setting absolutely reflect in their own practice, lead CLPL sessions and all these ingredients were essential for this to be a success. So I have been teaching at this school for 10 years. I am a music teacher for the past 6 years. I've been principal teacher of pupil support with a remit of DYW. I worked, another platform that's been very helpful for me in this role has been the local authority platform. So I've received support from DYW West, our partners there, from other DYW coordinators in the high schools in East Renfrewshire Council, and from our quality improvement officers and our DYW officers. So it was in that forum that I met Susan McLaren, who unfortunately can't be here today, but she, Susan McLaren from SDS, has co-delivered a lot of these CLPL sessions, and she gave us the confidence as a school when we could look at lots of different frameworks for skills to select meta skills. The head teacher mentioned there, yes, we're informed by the OECD report, but Susan really joined us in that journey to think about these are the skills that we need our young people to develop so they're competitive in this ever-changing world of work. I read a year ago, or just over a year ago, the Skills 4.0 paper. I attended Tom's presentation last year, which was about bringing meta skills to the classroom. And the exciting part for me last year, I don't know if anyone attended, was actually we saw the suite of resources that we might get to see later in this presentation. So it didn't feel like we were creating something from scratch. There was absolute supports there. And the following month, so in September 2021, I launched our Meta Skills framework with all of the staff. I presented the 12 skills. We talked about what that means for us in our school context and began to think about, right, what is going to be our next steps to make sure we can incorporate this into curriculum redesign. Next slide, please, Tom. Got a quote there from one of our members in our working group. So, like most schools trying to promote an initiative, we set up a working group of 9 teaching practitioners from each faculty area. What was really important is that they worked very closely throughout the year with their faculty heads. We only met 4 times. The first meeting was in September, at the end of September last year. However, there was actions in between each of those meetings, and as opposed to just coming together to discuss, our next steps, we also incorporated, maybe some further reading after the working group meetings, and we tried to have a hands-on practical approach. So Alison talks there about, she felt what we wanted to achieve from the outset in year 1 was, can we get young people talking about skills? Can they be confident with the language of skills? But as teachers, can we make it absolutely crystal clear and explicit when young people are developing their skills? And that was kind of one of our main objectives last year. And certainly the feedback from the team was that this didn't feel like an add-on, like it was embedded into, as a school, our curriculum redesign, which I think, again, was part of the success. Next slide, Tom. So the head teacher touched on it there, but probably one of the most inspiring CLPL sessions I have ever been to was attending NUVU in 2020. 4 of our 9 practitioners attended that. So we went to Kelvinside Academy. They talked about the problem, a project-based approach. So they would create real life, real context problems that young people had to solve. They would come together in teams, and there was no boundaries. There wasn't an emphasis on the product. It was the process of developing their skills, of problem solving, of working in teams. And that becomes really important when I'm going to talk later in this presentation about what the meta skill lesson looks like. So that was really important. We asked the working group to complete the embedding meta skills module. What I think is really important is teachers need to have, the right mindset. Pupils need to believe that teachers absolutely understand that the skills agenda is really important. When we are asked to develop so many things as teachers, why was this important? So I needed that 100% buy-in, and part of that buy-in came from the work with Susan in completing modules, because it gives you a deeper understanding. And we said from the outset we were going to ask of you to work with faculty heads to create meta skill lessons, but we need to share with staff not just the theory, the nuts and bolts of, I'm a science teacher, I'm a social subjects teacher, this is what the meta skill lesson looks like. This is what the lesson maybe looked like before, when I felt I wasn't illuminating skills in as clear a way as I am now. And there was a real investment in professional learning across the school, so that was something that the team were excited to do. Next slide, Tom. So the following month, so November 2021, so 1 month after my initial experience, I suppose, of SLF last year in bringing meta skills to the classroom, I created lessons for PSHE. So my pupil support teacher, it was great because it was the pupil support team that were able to lead these lessons. Again, I had 100% buy-in on why the skills agenda is really important. I suppose pupil support teachers are well placed because they would regularly be writing supporting references for college, for apprenticeship, employment and personal statements, and can perhaps see maybe where the gaps would be. So you can see there we looked at introducing the 12 skills, but picking skills in detail, videos that would really unpack what the skill means, what it looks like in reality. But that final image in the right-hand side, the canteen needs eggs from the HFTT department. So we purchased fake eggs and we asked our students in that first lesson to create a carrier for that egg so that the egg would not smash. And it was about bringing the skills to life and not purely about reflecting and talking. So that was quite important. But the big ask you can see there at the bottom of that screen was we asked teachers to go away and create meta skill lessons. So we asked our meta team to create that for their subject area. So it wasn't all teachers. We said this is a leadership role for you. We asked them to work with faculty heads to quality assure that young people had a standardised experience across subjects. Next slide, Tom. And we're going to hear from 2 members of our working group.
In my previous job, in my previous school, I was the principal teacher of STEM and DIW, which was a whole school remit. I was in charge of the DIW development across the curriculum, work experience, working with SDS and looking at skills development as well as the STEM remit. As part of that remit, I was helping pupils to fill in application forms for apprenticeships, for university, college, and it became very clear that pupils are developing the skills, however cannot articulate them within the application form or CV that they were filling in. Within those application forms and job interviews, employers are looking for pupils to be able to exemplify their skills. They're looking for pupils to be able to explain where they've used their skills and what skills they have and why they are applicable to that job that they're applying for. And pupils really struggle with that. I did a lot of work of trying to look at those skills, targeting different curriculums to see where analysis was being used, where teamwork was being used, where problem solving and evaluating was being used. And that was a lot of the work that we started doing before I moved to St Luke's. When I started at St Luke's, we were starting our journey on our redesign of the curriculum within the broad general education. The traditional curriculum we had was looking at the chemistry, biology and physics as discrete subjects, and the pupils rotated and did different subjects within those areas. With our redevelopment, we've looked at how we can integrate them together to merge the skills and so they can use all of their skills of all 3 sciences within one topic. So for example, the first topic they've been working on in first year has been the Martian, where they're looking at a trip to space and investigating Mars. So they've used their physics knowledge and learning about forces, friction and streamlining with their rocket design for going to Mars. They've looked at the solar system and why we would choose Mars over the other planets, looking at weight distribution, looking at how that changes because of different gravities. And then we're going to look at the fuels aspect from chemistry and how the fuels can then get them to the planet, looking at trying to determine life and discovery of elements within the planet, and then re-entry. So all of the content is merged together. On top of integrating our content as part of the DIW working group, I've been working with Brendan looking at all the meta skills and how they can be integrated across the curriculum. So we have merged them within all of our content that we are covering. So looking at the different meta skills, we will then link that to careers using My World of Work and looking at the possible careers that they would use that skill within. When looking at the scientific skills topic, so they're looking at all the different techniques that they need to be able to do for moving forward with the curriculum. As part of that, we have been introducing them to the meta skills and explaining what they mean. And at the end, they'll be using the meta skills wheel to track how confident they feel in those different areas. It's clear from the work that we've been doing within science with the new curriculum that we're clearly sparking their curiosity within science and highlighting innovation. So within the first topic that we've been covering, we've looked at NASA and the innovations that they have came up with. and it's been really, really good to see the pupils and the engagement within that, and them using their critical thinking and curiosity to progress with the world and its developments.
So something we've been developing in design and technology is the awareness of meta skills with our BGE. So we've redesigned the curriculum so that pupils can map the meta skills they develop throughout the course. So something that we've been trying to embed in BGE so that it's more prevalent in the senior phase is this skills development, so that the pupils can self-assess. They're more aware of what they're developing as they go through the pathway of design and technology. And obviously the bigger picture for St Luke's is to have a shared knowledge and understanding of meta skills, and how each curricular area can develop the meta skills for our learners. So we have developed in the school a sort of self-assessment tool, the meta skills wheel, that pupils can obviously map themselves and self-assess. And obviously in design and technology, we do that after every project. They can map out where they think they've not been strong, or they've developed this aspect of a meta skill in a project. As a classroom teacher, I teach design and technology, and we're obviously looking at expanding our learner options, our curricular options that we deliver in design and technology. So we now deliver the creative thinking course, we deliver the SQA automotive skills course, and we have an S3 STEM class as well, which we deliver separately from the makerspace in design and technology. And this is all about giving learners the opportunity to broaden their horizons and some of the pathways for them when they leave school. So job opportunities, or can we work with industry partners to look at the job options that are available for them. And obviously the automotive skills course is very hands-on, and we work with lots of car garages local to Barrhead and Neilston. So it gives our learners a large option from our traditional subjects that we would deliver in St Luke's or across Scotland. The past couple of years we've been developing a sort of shared understanding of problem-based learning, new approaches to IDL, embedding our meta skills into the learning and teaching. Our schools went through a substantial amount of CLPL, where staff have been involved in problem-based learning activities. We've done courses with Kelvinside Academy in Glasgow. We've been working with Nuvu, and obviously we're now hoping to embed this into our own curriculum. The curriculum that we deliver in the makerspace is delivered by a number of staff in the school, and it's all about developing skills, and obviously specifically meta skills. So this space that we're in sort of facilitates other curricular areas, not just STEM, being able to be more hands-on and take on challenges and projects that they wouldn't normally do in normal everyday learning and teaching in the classroom.
So one of the biggest successes was the Meta Skills Toolkit. So it felt very much like there was a suite of resources to support us, and we can see there posters in the top right of the screen. We've got kind of just snapshots of obviously the 12 or 8 of the meta skills there, and they were the digital prompts that we were then asking our working group to then go back and look at our courses and can incorporate that into our presentations and different booklets. So it was maybe subtle adaptations that made a big difference here, and teachers reported absolutely in the school that they feel that this reduced the sense of workload when we know that we're time poor, and we had that real drive from the middle leaders in the working group to take this forward. I don't know, Tom, if you're wanting to do a wee demonstration here, or you're
I think we're good for time, so I'll very quickly give a bit of an insight. A year ago at SLF 2021 was when we presented the Meta Skills Toolkit. It was very much a bringing together of examples of resources that we were actually witnessing being developed in schools, and certainly I've had conversations with Brendan, and we're really, really keen to add to our toolkit. And if anybody that's on the call has developed their own resources, more than happy if you were able to share these with us, and then we would obviously look at branding them up with an SDS, because unfortunately that's what we need to do, and then playing them out to the rest of the system. So again, so that people that may be coming to this for the first time, that actually have a suite of resources rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. So yeah, so certainly the toolkit is currently online. You know, for those of you that are wanting the link, I'll just quickly paste that in the chat function for you. It has been very well received. You know, we've had over 37 views of pages within the toolkit in the past year, and over 6,000 of the resources within the toolkit have been downloaded. Just in the last month or so, we now have a lot of our, in fact, all of the content has been translated to Gaelic. So there is a little button on the top right-hand corner that if you click that button, it will translate it for you. So we're really keen to ensure that that the toolkit is inclusive and can be used in all schools across Scotland. Delving into some of the tiles, you will find some of the resources, the suite of posters that Brendan was making reference to there. We've got individual meta skills posters. One of the things, just to make you aware, some of the feedback we were getting from primary colleagues was that there was maybe too much writing there, and that the younger learners were finding it difficult, to read that extra bit narrative. So what they were doing was they were printing the posters off and then using a guillotine to cut the bottom half of the poster off, because for them the main thing was the word and the kind of question and the iconography. So we do have a suite of posters that are actually taking that. So we've developed those that just are the word, the question and the icon, and actually take away that little extra narrative. So hopefully they'll be put up onto the toolkit later on, if not this week, early next week. It would have been nice to have had them up today, but unfortunately just a few things out with our control have meant that they're not on the toolkit. But yeah, it's there. Hopefully people find it useful. If you do have any feedback, more than happy for that to be received. But to date, it has captured a lot of the kind of hearts and minds of a few schools and certainly establishments, and keen that I relate with the language and actually would look to adopt that language. So I'm not saying any more, Brendan. I think really keen. I think the main thing of today was to hear your story since the launch of the toolkit last year, how you have actually taken those resources and run with it in your establishment. And obviously it's nice to see some of the resources that you've developed, and hopefully again you'll be able to share these with us, and we can get them uploaded for everybody. So I'll hand it back over to you.
So we next slide, please. Thanks. So we looked at what would a meta skill lesson look like. And you can see in the top right of the screen there, we have established since 2018 our St Luke's visible learning lesson. For a number of years, we've engaged with the educational research of John Hattie, and as a visible learning school, try and make sure that we are doing the very best practice. We are engaging with type approaches and pedagogical approaches that are going to make the absolute maximum difference, high impact for young people. So we established a standardised lesson, which I'm sure is very similar to lessons in your schools. So, and it was absolutely married up perfectly with the resources that were created by SDS. I think we just came away from that there, Tom.
Yeah, I was just wanting to get full screen, sorry.
No problem. So we start with the starter, learning intention, success criteria, and then that's the first point. We've obviously got the meta skills on the screen. Now, the big work that we did as a working group this year is when we look at what is that engaging activity, and you've obviously heard from Claire, our science PT, and Kevin, PT for STEM. What's the nuts and bolts of the activity that's going to highlight the meta skill or the meta skills? What we found is that teachers liked this concept of a meta skill lesson or a series of lessons that followed this format. But you also heard there from Kevin talking about most faculties used it at the end of topics. So when I was coming to the natural end of a topic, that was the point when maybe I was using the meta wheel. We felt we needed a world of work focus. Now, that was either an industry employer coming in as part of the lesson, for maybe also working with the teacher for that main activity, or perhaps we were using kind of digital library videos. So, for example, if you're doing an art lesson, maybe we're hearing from an architect and they're talking about the skills they use in their place of work. For me, there had to be a clear link to that real life context. Lots of self and peer assessment. We can see in the bottom right of the screen there, SDS's kind of sheet around the different meta skills and reflecting on that. And then the plenary again uses the same kind of branding, but then you've also got the meta skills along the bottom. And it's again another opportunity for pupils to reflect. Next slide, please. We wanted to personalise, so I used, if you look at the right there, it's we had pocket-sized definitions. We know teachers are time poor, we need to kind of support the success of these lessons in meta-skill activity. So at the fingertips they had their definition there, and we used that for pupils as well. We created a meta wheel. We like the idea of pupils being able to visually just track their development on the wheel, and that was probably been, in terms of feedback, that's maybe the resource that is used the most. The digital prompts were used very frequently when we were looking at curriculum redesign, and probably the pupils' favourite was definitely the meta stickers, where they would get a sticker for displaying different skills. We also created suggested reading, and we created these packs. So as a visible learning school, we've got what we call a visible learning toolbox. So there's a physical box that every teacher has, which has got lots of resources in there, and we added our meta pack to that. So our own personalised resources, but also SDS's suite of resources. And that's something that we replenished throughout the year. This year, as we've had new members of staff, we've also introduced them to these resources. And we had a kind of online version for this as well, so it wasn't always just physical. Next slide, please.
The next, this is again a little bit of a survey, an opportunity, to capture some of the perspectives of those of you on the call. Certainly we've seen the resources, or hopefully, some of you may have seen the resources within the toolkit, and we've obviously, Brendan has shared some of the resources, and we're hoping to work closely with Brendan to get more of these resources, put up onto the toolkit. So do you feel that the resources, from what you've seen there at the moment, actually will support you in bringing skills to life within the classroom? And certainly, for those of you that felt that maybe some of these resources won't you be able to support you, really, really keen to hear from you. Is there anything that we're missing? I know that, we've had many emails over the past year around about lessons and, trying to develop a suite of lessons that actually support. And I know Brendan's been kind enough to say that he's going to share some of his lessons with us. We've also got, some lessons that we're working on ourselves. So I think that's one of the things that people are really, really keen is to get these introductory lessons so that we'll take that on board and make sure that they're done. But yeah, just keen to get a sense of, are we actually, putting things together in a kind of constructive way, and if not, what can we do better? So no, I appreciate, we've got quite a few people on the call. We've got a little bit of a snapshot there. I am mindful of time. We've got 8 minutes, and there is a little bit of a video and a bit of a Q&A. So thank you for those of you that have shared your feedback. It will stay, you can actually, if you've started filling it in on Mentimeter, you can actually fill it in even though I go to the next slide. It will allow you to submit your answer. So I'll just go into the next slide, and back to you, Brendan. Oh, it's the video.
So we're going to hear from a collection of 6 of our pupils at the school.
I've been swimming since I was 3 years old, and I swim 7 times per week.
I also do drama outside of school, which helps me develop my meta skills a lot faster.
I use the meta skill adapting to change my approach within race and think in depth what I could do better next time.
I've shown collaboration in drama when we make our skits in our groups. An example would be coming up with ideas for the characters, script and storyline. We all have an input.
We use the meta skill focusing a lot on PE by listing how to learn it. The lesson we have been using this skill the most is trampoline and gymnastics. Everyone in the class has thoroughly enjoyed this.
Learning about the meta skills in school has helped me become better at all of them. In design and technology, we frequently use the meta skill creativity. In one lesson we had to design the face of a character, and we all use creativity to create unique faces.
Meta skills are important for so many reasons. One of those reasons is that meta skills can help to get jobs that you enjoy doing.
In the car unit, we had to first design what our car would look like. Then we were given wood and paper and we had to create the car carefully. In the end, we made the cars race to see whose was the fastest. We looked back on the meta skills we used after.
PV was the first class that we learnt about meta skills. Although we talked about them in many different subjects, we discussed them more in depth in PE. We talked about why we should keep up with the digital side of work and why it is becoming more common in jobs.
The pilot programme is discovering meta skills. It's when you work with employers on a task to build your meta skills through working with employers and dealing with tasks.
Our Developing Meta Skills programme is especially useful for me. My plan is to hopefully one day go on to own my own business. Therefore, this course gives me a great understanding of the types of skills which will be used and will be used in a more professional setting. An employer mentor project also helps me to understand the type of real life problems which will arise in a business and the kind of obstacles which we will need to overcome.
When I leave school, I hope to be a personal trainer. The meta skills I require is adapting, communicating and leading. I require them to be a PT because those particular skills are really useful as a PT.
During the course we've been looking at 12 meta skills which we'll discuss, learn and then we'll go on to develop. Further on in the course we'll begin our employer mentor project. We'll be split up into groups and then we'll be joined by an employer mentor from a few different organisations. Each group will be given an employer project which is a live project specifically set for that group, and then we'll work together throughout the year and add to the project to complete it. Throughout the programme there are 6 units and each unit will follow with an end of unit assessment and 3 reflective blogs on our own personal experience of the course and what we've learned so far. This course is an excellent opportunity for us as young people to develop and establish these skills which we're discussing. These skills will also then be applied in the outside world as we move on to further and higher education after school.
So we heard there from Aidan and Aoife, and they were talking about their Discovering Meta Skills course that they were offering to a small group of senior pupils. And for me, we're really excited to see how that progresses. As DYW coordinator, I'll regularly work with teachers and industry partners, and they'll come together and we'll plan a partnership where industry employers will be in the school and they might lead work inspiration events. What's been really good in this last year has been we've been able to say, well, as a school, meta skills are really important to us. So when we're co-planning what that looks like across different subjects, we're saying these are the skills we would really like you to tease out. Are these skills that are important in your area of work? And I'll maybe touch a wee bit in our final slide about our plans next year for that. Next slide, please. So in terms of raising awareness of meta skills, obviously I discussed the stickers there. My head teacher might be watching this, so this is a cheeky request for stamps that came in. They were quite expensive, but I think would make a difference. In terms of feedback being very, very important for pupils, I think that could make a difference. We've got our formalised approaches within the school, so we do Hot Chocolate Fridays. We also send postcards from teachers to pupils. We've obviously got our newsletter, wall displays, and Twitter as well, which most schools would use. But importantly, teachers here have been able to offer this praise for a number of different activities a young person has done, but they can focus on a particular meta skill. So again, it's been really important in getting the skills agenda out there. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, I think, we are beginning to embed meta skills in our school. I think young people are hearing different teachers talk about meta skills, are reflecting on the same skill in different subject areas and making connections across subjects, and they are becoming familiar with the language of meta skills. And it's really important then that we continue to invest in professional learning. Thankfully, the working group is going to be working with me again this year, and Susan. And again, it's going to be that employer partnership element we want to tease out. We feel confident we've got our meta skills lesson there. And in feedback from teachers, that was one of the easiest things. A teacher knows their subject inside out, so they had lots of ideas about what a lesson could look like. But I really feel that the partner element is going to elevate those lessons. And as Tom touched on at the start, looking at a refreshed approach to profiling. Whilst young people are, you know, developing the language of skills and reflecting on them within teaching and learning, are they able to map that across, you know, from S1 to S6, and can they then think about that in relation to the other achievements within school? So that is really the kind of one of the other big steps we hope to achieve this year. That's us, Tom. Thank you.
Great. I appreciate, you know, we were instructed to obviously, you know, stop very, very promptly at 5:30. We do have 1 minute for some questions. So if you do have any questions, if you could please add them, you know, to this Mentimeter. If you could include your email address, what we will do, you know, I appreciate we are going to run out of time. We will obviously look, you know, to follow up with you all individually and try to answer these questions. I suppose, you know, there is one there already from, you know, Jess. So thank you very much for your question, Jess. As I say, if you could follow up and send that to the education@sds.co.uk mailbox, and between Brendan and myself, you know, we'll look to answer that question. So I can only apologise that we obviously don't have enough time, you know, to look at that now. I do appreciate, you know, some of you might be at one of the satellite events and you maybe want to go into one of those, and it may be that you obviously want to attend another session at 5:45. But must just say, if you find, how will you find out the answers? I could maybe speak to Education Scotland. I don't know if there's a way of collating all of this. I know that these videos will be uploaded, so I don't know if there's a way of collating the answers to some of the questions and actually, you know, attaching these as a document, or, you know, oh, sorry, Brendan, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Tom, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, hopefully we will be able to get these to you. So, but no, thank you very much for giving your time this afternoon to come along. Hopefully you found you know, part of the session or all of the session really insightful. And if you just take one thing away from it and go back to your you know, centre or try it within your classroom, that would be fantastic. But no, thank you very much for your time, and feel free to get in touch if you've got any more questions.